Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video. This is another gear item from Thunderbird Gear. Steve over there sent me a few things to check out so that I could share them with you. And because, frankly, I was satisfying my own curiosity as well. So it's definitely a win-win situation. I get to check out some cool stuff. I get to talk about a company that I like and have had good experiences with in the past by way of Thunderbird Gear. And you guys get to see some cool stuff and get an extra opinion on it to see whether or not, this is worthwhile for you. Previously, I, talked a bit about this tactile turn bolt action pen. And at that, I've got to say, guys, I absolutely love this pen. It is so nice. Now I have switched it out. The only complaint I had, to be fully, honest here, is I switched it out for the fine tip of the Pilot G2 insert. Otherwise, it's perfect. It's just fantastic. And of course, there'd be other inserts as well, so you could do something different. But here's my story. I like the pen so much. And the pen was sort of the first thing that came along, and then shortly thereafter, it may not even been that shortly, it may have been a little bit of time later, they came out with the knife. Now this is the Rockwell, and I don't think this is their first effort. I think there was a previous knife before that. I could be wrong. Someone correct me down in the comments if you'd like to. Anyway, I have been hearing about this and looking at them online and watching some other people's videos for a year now or more, since these have been around for a little bit, although I don't think they were initially in MagnaCut, and of course they were originally with a flipper tab, and this is the thumb stud version. So this is a pretty cool version of this knife, and one that I was very curious to get my hands on, and I have to give credit to Steve for facilitating that. So really nice to see. The main reason though that I wouldn't buy this, just so you guys know, is its size. Right? If this was a little bigger, I would be very interested in this knife. As it stands now, it just doesn't do much to excite me. I kind of have a thing for knives that are over 3.5 inches, or the blade must be 3.5 inches or over, and this one doesn't quite get there. In fact, it doesn't even get close. So let me give you a quick rundown on the size. I'll throw a ruler in just so that you can kind of see for yourself and get some context here. Okay, so this is 7 inches overall. It's just a hair over 7 inches. In fact, the blade is 3 inches, just a hair over 3 inches. The handle is 4 inches. 3.5 inches of grip area. I'm going to move this now. 3.5 inches of grip area means I can get a full 4-finger grip on this, which is nice to see. It's not a hand-filling knife. It's a pretty small folder. It's meant for, sort of a small, light gentleman's EDC, and it does that really well. So smaller knife, only 2.5 ounces. And so for all of those, all that size stuff is why I wouldn't really go out and pick one of these up for myself. However, I know many of you watching love 3-inch knives and would really enjoy this. Not to mention, there's so many things that I like about this. The reason, even though this is not a knife that I really would want to own, that I still wanted to check it out is, coming up. It's just reason after reason after reason. There's a lot of great stuff going on here. So let's go and talk about some of those things now. Starting off with this blade, up front we have a MagnaCut drop point blade with a top swedge there, flat saber grind, fairly thin blade stock, fairly thin behind the edge. Okay, now I don't know. The blade stock is so thin that it probably doesn't matter that much how abrupt this is. We've talked about full flat grinds versus saber grinds versus hollow grinds, and I always prefer a hollow grind. But for light duty EDC stuff, for the kind of jobs that this knife is intended for, I think this blade will be really nice. And of course, MagnaCut is sort of the darling right now, and there's so many good things to say about MagnaCut. I'm not gonna, there's let's say there's good reason, okay, that MagnaCut is popular, and it's nice to see. And I don't think I have it in anything right now in my own collection, but it is one of those steels that's on my list. It's not like the end all and be all, my favorite steel of all time or anything like that, but it's definitely a great steel, and I love that they're using it. The other thing I guess we should say is this knife is not crazy expensive. Okay, so that might be one of the things that entices you, is that you can get MagnaCut in a knife that's not, exorbitantly pricey. Okay, let's move on to the action. And again, I'm going to talk about this stuff. I did do some research. I didn't take this knife apart, guys. This is not my knife. It's meant to be sold as brand new, and so I'm a lot more. I handle this a lot differently than I do a a knife that I buy and own in my collection. Okay, so no, I haven't taken this apart. No, I haven't done a bunch of cutting with it. I've had to sort of, I had to go online and find a couple of disassembly videos and some details like that to see what the internals look like. I will talk about that though. There are a couple of interesting things there. All right, and let's get to that next. This is on bearings. All right, so is it the smoothest bearing knife I've ever seen? Nah, not the smoothest, but it's fine. Very lightweight blade. So, you can see how it's not drop shut right now. I think if you tinkered with this a little bit, and again, this is not my knife, so I'm not going to tinker with it. The action, you can see it's quite snappy. The detent is pretty dialed in, and the thumb stud, despite being very close to the handle there, normally I'd be concerned, or I'd express worry about that it wouldn't be accessible. It's been really, really good for me. In addition to that, so there are bearings in here. The liner here is a stainless steel liner, and it's attached. I think you can see it right. Hold on. You can sort of see it right there where this is attached to the titanium scales. These scales are milled to save weight, which is a nice touch. And just another interesting note is that when they drill through this blade, when they cut the hole for the pivot, they also cut the detent hole. So you can, if you look at a disassembly video, you'll see this blade has the pivot hole and then a hole running off in this direction. Well, if the blade, when the blade's oriented, this way, you can see another hole there. So kind of interesting, maybe that saves them a step in machining and cuts cost a little bit, or helps with precision, whatever the case may be. Now, action is fine. And again, I think with a little bit of tinkering, it could probably be exceptional. So let me throw that out there. The thumb stud is accessible. It's a little sharp on the edge, but it's not really anything to complain about. So all in all, oh, sorry, I should say one other thing that I should have mentioned. Notice how the liner seems to sit pretty flush. And again, that's something I worry about, but they've done a great job getting just enough jimping here that without thinking about it, without having to try or be conscious of what I'm doing, I can easily actuate that lock bar. I never slip off it. It's not uncomfortable. So I've got to, give credit for that as well. And finally, you can see stop pin. Come on. There we go, stop pin right back there. So that's how the whole action goes together. Notable here, and that's something that I feel like I want to throw out here, is there are no bearing races in this knife. So that's usually something we want to see. And in this case, it's missing. It's not the end of the world. There are lots of great knives out there that don't have bearing races, but it's certainly something I prefer to see. All right. Finally, let's get to probably the biggest story here, and that is this handle. Partially, I guess it's just my own personal preference, but this is so clean. Just nicely done, precision work, classy and clean and attractive. The pivot is sort of decorative, but not crazy. The milling here does definitely give you a nice traction plan, as does the jimping. All right, so it feels good. It looks good. I don't really get a hot spot from the clip back here, and the clip itself is a pretty interesting touch as well. Very, very deep clip, wraps around and goes into the backspacer so that this screw is kind of connecting everything, which does make a very clean finish on the non-locking side. All right, and these screws do kind of hold everything together. All right, so handle construction, really, really nice. I love how they've done this internal liner, sort of a sub liner lock, if you will. And overall, just a very clean, attractive, comfortable design. There's not really that much to complain about here, other than for me the size. If you're going to do a lot of hard use cutting, this is probably not your knife. It's any knife that isn't super hand filling and giving you a big grip to giving you a big hand filling. Wow, big round hand filling handle to grab onto, right? You get a lot of, if you get a lot of hard work going, it's not going to be super comfortable. You're going to rely on your thumb a lot, which again is a problem. But it's not designed to be that. This is designed to be a light use EDC style folder, and for that, it is very, very nice. Now, I think I've touched on all of the details. I've given you my thoughts to them. I do want to throw in a couple of comparable knives. There are a couple knives that I have that sort of remind me of this because of size, because of, design. The Kershaw Federalist is on my short list. I like the Federalist a lot. A lot of similar things to say, kind of a clean, interesting design. Obviously, this is quite a bit cheaper, and that's one of the reasons I threw it in. Some of you might be watching going, Kevin, this is this is not a cheap knife, and I really can't swing it. So perhaps something like the Federalist would be more appealing to you. I'd also throw in the Civivi Elementum. This happens to be the button lock, but even the smaller version would probably be a little more comparable. All right. In terms of gentlemen's folders, it might not be bad to think about the Civivi Dogma, sort of on the smaller side. Now it is bigger. Notice these are all from, these are all my own personal knives, so most of them are bigger. You guys know I like the larger stuff. Okay, but these are some options that would be, a little more in the budget realm. This one is, of course, a slip joint. You could probably add the, recently I shared with you guys the Real Steel Luna. This is the Knife Nuts podcast exclusive edition. So, very, very nice. A little smaller. And of course, again, being a slip joint, it may not be exactly, but it is sort of a smaller, light use gentleman style folder. So that might be something to consider as well. Now, let's get the budget options out of the way. And there are a couple of other knives. This is my Sharp by Design Mini Tempest. It is bigger. This is about the smallest knife that I find myself wanting to own, use, and carry. We've also got the Spyderco Swayback, which is much larger, but again, sort of in that gentlemanly, clean, simple design vein that this knife is certainly aiming for. And of course, we could talk as well about the small Sebenza, which, I think the Sebenza deserves quite a bit of credit for a lot of the knives I just showed you. All of these knives with a very clean, simple, functional aesthetic. Sebenza ties right in there with this classy, simple look. So those are some comparisons for you. My overall thoughts, does this compare to those? Yeah, I think it does. I think the value equation is pretty good on this knife. The design and the implementation, of course, it is made in the US, which further amplifies that whole value discussion. So there's a lot to really, really like here. And honestly, guys, if this knife was in a larger size category, like if it was a 3.5-inch knife, we probably wouldn't be just borrowing this from Thunderbird Gear. We'd be looking at a knife that I have bought and added to my collection. But in this case, because of the size, that's not going to happen. But nonetheless, very, very cool knife, really interesting, and I'm sure will appeal to many of you. So let me know down in the comments below, especially if you have one. And don't forget, someone fill me in on what other models Tactile Turn has, because there could be something else there that one is interesting for me to review, or maybe that I could pick up from, or that I could borrow from Steve and bring you a little bit more content. All right, thanks for watching. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.